The waitress showed kindness to a disabled man. A billionaire changed her life. Emma wiped down the last table at Rose's diner as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the checkered floor. Her blonde wavy hair caught the light as she moved with practiced efficiency, her smile never wavering despite the ache in her feet from another double shift. The diner wasn't much to look at: cracked vinyl booths, a coffee machine that wheezed, and a bell that chimed whenever someone entered. But to Emma, it was home. She had worked here for 3 years, ever since her mother's medical bills had forced her to drop out of nursing school. Every customer who walked through that door received the same warm welcome, whether they ordered the expensive steak dinner or just nursed a cup of coffee for hours. Emma believed that everyone deserved kindness, especially those the world had forgotten. The afternoon lull was interrupted by the familiar chime of the entrance bell. Emma looked up to see a man in his 50s carefully maneuvering through the narrow aisle between tables. David walked with 2 canes, his left leg clearly weaker than his right, the result of a stroke 2 years prior that had left him partially paralyzed. His once confident stride had been replaced by careful, deliberate steps, and Emma noticed how other patrons quickly averted their gazes, uncomfortable with his struggle. "Good afternoon, Mr. David," Emma called out cheerfully, already reaching for the coffee pot. "Your usual table." David's weathered face lit up at her genuine warmth. Most places made him feel like an inconvenience, but Emma always made him feel seen, valued. "If it's not too much trouble, Emma." "Never trouble," she replied, already clearing a path to his preferred corner booth, the one with extra space for his canes and a clear view of the street outside. As David slowly made his way over, Emma noticed him struggling to navigate around a carelessly placed chair. Without hesitation, she quickly moved the obstacle and gently placed her hand on his arm for support. "There we go. Take your time." David settled into the booth with a grateful sigh. "You know, Emma, in a world that's always rushing, you're one of the few who remembers to slow down for people like me." Emma poured his coffee, adding just the right amount of cream. "We all need someone to slow down for us sometimes, Mr. David. Today it's you, tomorrow it might be me." What neither Emma nor David noticed was the impeccably dressed man sitting alone in the corner booth, partially hidden behind a newspaper. Alexander Hayes, one of the country's youngest billionaires, had been coming to this unremarkable diner for weeks, seeking refuge from the suffocating world of board meetings and hostile takeovers. He had built his empire through calculated moves and ruthless efficiency, but lately, he felt empty, disconnected from any sense of purpose beyond profit margins. As Alexander watched Emma's interaction with David, something stirred within him, a recognition of a quality he had almost forgotten existed. Here was someone who gave without calculation, who saw dignity in every person regardless of their circumstances. In his world of transactional relationships and corporate warfare, such genuine compassion was rarer than any precious metal. Sometimes the greatest acts of kindness happen in the smallest moments, reminding us that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the compassion we show to those who need it most. Alexander Hayes adjusted his worn baseball cap and faded jeans, his disguise carefully crafted to blend into the working-class atmosphere of Rose's diner. For the past month, he had been escaping to this humble establishment whenever the weight of his corporate empire became too suffocating. Here, nobody knew that the quiet man in the corner booth controlled a technology conglomerate worth billions, or that his signature could change thousands of lives with a single decision. Emma refilled his coffee without being asked, her intuitive service a stark contrast to the calculated attention he received from his staff. "How's the apple pie today?" she asked with genuine interest, not the rehearsed politeness he was accustomed to. "Perfect, as always," Alexander replied, studying her face. There was something luminous about Emma's spirit that drew him back here day after day. In a world where everyone wanted something from him, she simply wanted to make his day a little brighter. As the weeks passed, Alexander found himself arriving earlier and staying longer, fascinated by Emma's interactions with the diverse clientele. She remembered details about her customers' lives: Mrs. Rodriguez's granddaughter's graduation, Tom the trucker's route changes, elderly Mr. Patterson's doctor appointments. Emma created a web of connection in a place where people might otherwise remain strangers. One rainy Thursday, Alexander witnessed something that would change both their lives forever. David had arrived for his usual afternoon coffee, but today he seemed more unsteady than usual. As he attempted to hang his raincoat on the hook beside his booth, he lost his balance. His canes clattered to the floor as he reached out desperately for support. Emma was beside him in an instant, her arms steadying him with gentle strength. "I've got you, Mr. David. You're okay." Other customers glanced over with brief concern before returning to their meals, but Emma helped David to his seat with the same care she might show her own father. She retrieved his canes, hung up his coat, and brought him a warm towel for his rain-dampened hair. "You don't have to fuss over me," David said quietly, embarrassed by his vulnerability. Emma knelt beside his booth, her voice soft but firm. "Mr. David, you fought in Vietnam, raised 3 children as a single father, and taught high school mathematics for 30 years. You've given so much to this world. Let someone give back to you, just a little." Alexander felt something crack open in his chest as he watched this exchange. When was the last time someone had spoken to him with such authentic care? When had he last seen such selfless compassion? Emma wasn't performing kindness for an audience or expecting a reward. She was simply being who she was, someone who understood that dignity was every person's birthright. David's eyes filled with tears he tried to hide. "Some days I feel invisible, Emma. Like the world has moved on without me." "You're not invisible to me, Mr. David. You matter. Your stories matter. Your presence here makes this place brighter." As Emma returned to her other duties, Alexander made a decision that would alter the course of multiple lives. He pulled out his phone and made a call to his assistant. "Patricia, I need you to compile everything you can find about Emma Martinez, the waitress at Rose's Diner on 5th Street. And Patricia, this is personal, not professional. Discretion is essential. True character is revealed not by how we treat those who can benefit us, but by how we treat those who cannot repay our kindness." 3 weeks after Alexander's phone call, Emma's life took an unexpected turn. She had just finished her evening shift when a well-dressed woman approached her outside the diner. Patricia Chen, Alexander's assistant, introduced herself with professional warmth. "Ms. Martinez, my employer would like to meet with you regarding a potential opportunity. Would you be available tomorrow afternoon?" Emma's first instinct was suspicion. She'd heard too many stories of young women being lured into dangerous situations. "What kind of opportunity? And who is your employer?" Patricia handed her an elegant business card. "Alexander Hayes, CEO of Hayes Industries. He's been impressed by your character and would like to discuss a philanthropic venture he's considering." Emma stared at the card in disbelief. Hayes Industries was one of the largest tech companies in the country. "I think you have the wrong person. I'm just a waitress. Mr. Hayes specifically requested you, Ms. Martinez. The meeting would take place at our downtown offices, completely professional and safe. You're welcome to bring anyone you'd like." That night, Emma lay awake wondering what a billionaire could possibly want with her. She thought about calling in sick, pretending the whole thing was a mistake, but curiosity and a nagging sense that this might be important won out. The Hayes Industries building was a gleaming tower of glass and steel that made Emma feel impossibly small. Patricia escorted her to the executive floor, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the city. Emma had never seen her hometown from such heights. It looked beautiful and foreign at the same time. Alexander's office was surprisingly warm for such a corporate space, filled with books and personal photographs rather than the cold efficiency she had expected. When he entered, Emma was shocked to recognize the quiet man who had been a regular customer at the diner. "You," she breathed, then immediately felt foolish. "I mean, Mr. Hayes. I didn't realize." Alexander smiled, and Emma noticed how different he looked without the weight of disguise. Younger, more vital, but also more vulnerable. "I apologize for the deception, Emma. I've been coming to Rose's because it's the only place where I can just be myself. Where people don't see dollar signs when they look at me." As they talked, Emma learned about Alexander's lonely childhood as the heir to an industrial fortune, his parents' death in a car accident when he was 22, and the crushing responsibility of inheriting a company that employed thousands. He spoke about the isolation of wealth, how it created barriers between him and authentic relationships. "I've been watching you, Emma," Alexander said, and when she tensed, he quickly clarified. "Not in a creepy way. I've been observing how you interact with people. How you make everyone feel valued. That day with David, it reminded me of something I'd forgotten. What's that? That success without compassion is just elaborate emptiness. I've spent years building an empire, but I've never built anything that actually mattered to people like David, like Mrs. Rodriguez, like you. Alexander moved closer, and Emma caught his scent, expensive cologne mixed with something warmer, more human. I want to create a foundation, Emma. Something that addresses real need, real people. But I can't do it alone. I need someone who understands the heart of community, who sees people others ignore. Their conversation stretched into the evening, moving from the formal conference room to Alexander's private office, where he poured wine and they sat on the couch overlooking the city lights. Emma found herself captivated by this man who wielded tremendous power but seemed genuinely hungry for purpose and connection. "Why me?" Emma asked as the wine loosened her tongue. "You could hire any number of qualified people." Alexander set down his glass and turned to face her fully. "Because you see people, Emma. Really see them. And because..." He hesitated, vulnerability flickering across his features. "Because when you look at me, I don't feel like a balance sheet. I feel human." Sometimes life's greatest opportunities come disguised as ordinary moments, and the most powerful people are those who remember to treat others with simple human dignity. Emma accepted Alexander's offer to become the director of community outreach for the Hayes Foundation, but she insisted on keeping her shifts at Rose's Diner 2 days a week. "I can't lose touch with the people we're trying to help," she explained, and Alexander found himself falling deeper for this woman who refused to be completely extracted from her roots. Their working relationship evolved into something more intimate over the following months. Late nights planning community programs turned into dinners where they shared stories from their vastly different childhoods. Alexander spoke of boarding schools and business dinners where he was the youngest person at the table. Emma described helping her mother clean office buildings after school to make ends meet. "I used to be embarrassed by where I came from," Emma admitted one evening as they reviewed grant applications in Alexander's penthouse apartment. She had kicked off her heels and curled up on his leather couch, wine glass in hand, her blonde hair catching the firelight. "But now I realize it taught me something your schools couldn't." "What's that?" Alexander asked, moving to sit beside her. "That everyone has a story worth hearing. That dignity isn't earned by bank accounts or job titles." She looked at him seriously. "I hope I can teach you that too." Alexander reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch lingering on her cheek. "You already have, Emma. You've taught me things I didn't even know I needed to learn." Their first kiss happened naturally, sweetly, as they sat surrounded by papers detailing how to help homeless veterans find housing. When Emma pulled back, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "This feels impossible," she whispered. "You're the woman who saw a lonely man hiding in a diner and made him feel human again," Alexander finished. "You're the woman who's going to change more lives than any boardroom decision I've ever made." Meanwhile, the foundation was taking shape beautifully. Emma's first major project was creating a program for disabled veterans like David, providing both practical support and community connection. She hired former military personnel as peer counselors, established partnerships with local businesses for job training, and created social spaces where isolation could be replaced with belonging. David became one of their first success stories and biggest advocates. Through the foundation's support, he began teaching mathematics again at a community center, his purpose restored along with his confidence. "Emma saw me when the world looked away," he told local reporters covering the foundation's launch. "Now she's teaching others to see what they've been missing." The night before the foundation's public launch, Alexander found Emma on the terrace of his apartment, staring out at the city lights. She wore a simple black dress that highlighted her natural beauty, her hair loose around her shoulders. "Nervous?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Terrified," she admitted, leaning into his warmth. "What if we can't live up to what we've promised? What if I'm not qualified for this?" Alexander turned her in his arms, his hands framing her face. "Emma, you've already changed more lives than you know. That day with David, do you know he told me it was the first time in months he felt like he mattered? That one act of kindness created ripples you're still discovering." As he kissed her under the starlit sky, Emma felt the weight of possibility and responsibility settling around them like a shared blanket. Tomorrow would bring media attention, public scrutiny, and the enormous task of living up to their promises. But tonight, she was simply a woman falling in love with a man who was learning that the greatest wealth was measured in connections made and lives touched. Love grows not from grand gestures, but from the daily choice to see the best in someone and help them become who they're meant to be. 1 year later, the Hayes Foundation had transformed from ambitious dream to thriving reality. Emma stood in the community center that had once been an abandoned warehouse, watching David lead a mathematics tutoring session for at-risk teenagers. The space buzzed with activity, job training programs, support groups, a cafe run by formerly homeless individuals, and a childcare center that allowed parents to pursue education and employment. Alexander approached from behind, slipping his arms around her waist as she watched their shared vision come to life. "Proud of what you've built," he murmured against her ear. "What we've built," Emma corrected, turning in his arms. The past year had changed them both. Alexander had learned to lead with empathy rather than just efficiency, while Emma had discovered she possessed a natural talent for inspiring others and managing large-scale initiatives. Their relationship had deepened alongside their professional partnership. Alexander had moved out of his sterile penthouse into a beautiful but more modest home, while Emma had left her tiny studio apartment to share space with him. They had learned to bridge their different worlds. He accompanied her to her cousin's quinceañera and helped serve Thanksgiving dinner at the community center, while she attended charity galas and learned to navigate the complex social dynamics of philanthropy. "There's something I need to tell you," Alexander said, his voice carrying an unusual note of nervousness. Before he could continue, Patricia approached with a clipboard and an excited expression. "Emma, you need to see this. The veteran housing program has a waiting list of over 500 people, and we're getting calls from 3 other cities wanting to replicate the model. And David's tutoring program has a 98% graduation rate for participants." Emma felt overwhelmed by the scope of what they had accomplished. "We need to expand, don't we?" "Actually," Alexander said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket, "I was hoping we could make this expansion official in more ways than one." Emma's hands flew to her mouth as Alexander dropped to one knee in the middle of the community center, surrounded by the people whose lives had been touched by their work together. David stood nearby with tears in his eyes, and she realized this moment had been orchestrated with the same care Alexander brought to everything he truly valued. "Emma Martinez," Alexander said, his voice carrying across the now quiet room, "you taught me that true success isn't measured in profits, but in the number of lives we touch. You showed me that the greatest strength comes from lifting others up. Will you marry me and continue building a life where love and service are the same thing?" Through her tears, Emma saw the faces around them, David beaming with pride, Mrs. Rodriguez from the diner holding her granddaughter, formerly homeless veterans who now had keys to their own apartments, teenagers who had discovered they were capable of learning and growing. These were the people who had become their extended family, the community they had nurtured together. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, always yes." As Alexander slipped the ring onto her finger, the community center erupted in celebration. David started a slow clap that built into thunderous applause, and Emma realized that this moment perfectly captured what they had learned together, that the most beautiful things in life happened when individual kindness expanded into collective love. Later that evening, as they sat in Rose's diner sharing apple pie, Emma still worked her 2 shifts a week, now as much for grounding as necessity. David approached their booth with a manila envelope. "I have something for you both," he said, his voice emotional. "I've been writing down stories from everyone whose life has been touched by the foundation. Emma, that day you helped me when I stumbled. You couldn't have known that man in the corner was watching, or that your simple kindness would become something so much larger. But that's the thing about kindness, it multiplies in ways we never expect." As Emma opened the envelope and found page after page of handwritten stories, she understood that they had indeed created ripples that extended far beyond what they could see. Their love story had become a community story, their private kindness had grown into public transformation, and their foundation had become a living testament to the truth that small acts of love could indeed change the world. The greatest love stories aren't just between 2 people, they're between hearts that choose to love the world together, creating ripples of kindness that extend far beyond what any one person could achieve alone. The lesson: true wealth lies not in what we accumulate for ourselves, but in how we use our gifts, whether they be financial resources, talents, or simply the capacity for kindness, to lift others up. When we see the dignity in every person and treat them with compassion, we create ripples of positive change that extend far beyond what we can imagine. Love grows strongest when it's built on shared purpose and the commitment to make the world more caring for everyone.